Tonight, we have the Great Embracer Trash Fire continuing, the final shape has been delayed, and the Game Awards seems to be buffing security. All that and more on GamePoints episode 376, but first I want everyone here to know this is an audience interactive podcast. So if you're watching live here at Twitch TV /GamePoints, or later at any myriad of video hosting platforms, join the conversation. Questions, comments, etc. down below. I want to know what you guys think about these topics we're going to be going over. Let's go ahead and get right into things out the gate here with the very first topic from Video Game Chronicle. Embracer CEO confirms TimeSplitters studio faces closure before Christmas. And one of the most grinchiest ass headlines I have ever seen produced. By the way, this article that we're going over and all the ones we'll be talking about will be provided with links down below. I recommend you all go read them for yourselves as well, because I do just skim over them. Going right to the article itself. Free Radical design staff are currently in a consultation process. To the article. VGC reported earlier this month, by the way, this is from Video Game Chronicle, so go take a look at them. VGC reported earlier this month that Free Radical was at threat of being closed just 2 years after it was established as part of a huge company-wide costs at Embracer and owned publishers. For those out of the loop, Embracer has had a massive hemorrhaging of employees lately as they're cutting jobs left and right, canceling projects, closing studios. And all of this stems from a $2 billion deal with that Saudi Arabian private investment group that just kind of went kaboom. I think they're called the Savoy Group or the Savvy Group. And that deal fell through. So suddenly Embracer, which is extremely overextended and went on a buying spree, found itself short of a massive influx of cash and are now just cutting costs and corners wherever they can. They are a sinking ship. This is what happens when you grow too big too fast. Krispy Kreme is an example that I like to point to. They're a donut shop in America that about, I want to say a decade or so ago, was a small handful of stores that within only a year or so massively blew up to have hundreds of stores everywhere. And they really overproduced what they thought the demand would be, and then immediately closed a lot of those stores down with only a few years. Embracer Group's kind of suffering the same fate as we speak. Back to the article. Although Embracer has yet to publicly confirm Free Radical's position, sources told VGC that Wingforce, that would be CEO Lars Wingforce, has now acknowledged the company in email, Sources told him that Wingfoss has now acknowledged in a company email that the Nottingham, UK-based company could be closed on December 11th, following the completion of a consultation process. PlayOn, the Embracer division which runs the studio, is required by UK employment law to consult employees for a minimum of 30 days before making any redundancies, including exploring ways of avoiding them. There remains a possibility that the studio could remain open then, should Embracer receive interest from third parties interested in requiring it. They're not going to. The long and the short of it is that the reason why no one has bought up Free Radical outside of Embracer is because no one wanted Free Radical. No one wanted TimeSplitters. I know there's some TimeSplitters fans out there. I'm one of them. I love the games. But there's no AAA potential in it, and there certainly is no indie potential in it either, so it's a license really without a home, without much interest, at least enough interest to justify the amount of money being spent on it. But this sucks, because this is one of those things where Embracer just fucked up on a massive corporate level, and they were relying on venture funding, investment funding to keep them going, rather than the strength of their IPs, or lack thereof, depending on how you take a look at it, considering some of the things they own. And it's not going to be Wingfours that pays the price for his short-sightedness. It's going to be, at last count, somewhere around 900 people, I think. We'll get into exact details of that in a bit. But it's not just Free Radical that's having issues. Oh, and by the way, when a company by UK law says they have to have 30 days to explore other options, the company's already done that homework. They're shutting down, probably as early as December 11th, which I believe is the exact 30th day on that, which would be 2 Mondays from now. So I fully expect on the show on the 12th to make mention that Free Radical does more, sadly. Thus it is. However, when a company, they're just doing the the showmanship. They're just putting on the stage show to make the UK authorities back off. They're getting shut down. I'm almost positive. And with how things are right now, with financial conditions across the globe tightening for everyone, I don't see anyone that has any interest in buying them. And that sucks. One good thing about having this in place where they got to wait at least 30 days before they take any action is that it does allow the developers at Free Radical start looking for other jobs. Last I heard, there was like 55 of the 120-ish people there already applying for work in other studios. There's a couple studios in the UK itself, relatively close to where they're based out of, offering to do interviews for anyone applying there that worked at Free Radical. So they're already trying to throw out some life preservers. But this ship's going down, unfortunately. I don't think there's too much that can be done about it. Embracer's also been busy in other places they own as well, with Fishlabs getting the axe as well. Now, for those of you who don't know who Fishlabs is, they did a mobile game called Galaxy on Fire, but let's not worry about that. What they did make was the fantastic Chorus, a space-style shooter that felt a lot like Colony Wars did. Less Wing Commander, less Freelancer, less like in-depth space sim. It was just very arcadey, which is why I use Colony Wars for. I absolutely adored it, by the way. I recommend you all go take a look at it. I think it is on Xbox Game Pass. So definitely worth taking a look at. It's not going to blow your mind or anything like that, but for the time I put into it, it was definitely worth it. And a statement here from Fishlabs. For over 15 years, our team at Fishlabs have been pouring their heart and soul and hard work into some of the most loved games and creative projects out there. We've always been proud of that team we've built, and we live and breathe games. We are proud to have been able to create outstanding experiences for everyone who plays our games. Unfortunately, the challenging year in our industry, as well as the challenges of the internal group-wide restructuring efforts, have affected our team after all. We are heartbroken to announce that we had to face the tough decision from Embracer Group of layoffs in our studio. Around 50 of our team members were affected by this decision. This is another studio that I believe also has like 120 or so in it. Free Radical might have more than 120. Now that I think about it, I could have been getting confused with the story, so double check me on that. We have to recognize that this has been exceptionally disheartening to hear this news for our team and their families as the holiday season approaches. Yeah, that's another thing. They're doing this right before Christmas, which is rough. We're working with the leadership team at PlayOn to support every affected team member and help as many of them through the career transition assistance and comprehensive severance packages. While still remain open as a small but passionate and committed team, we'll remain working on smaller projects. By the way, for those of you thinking that Chorus 2 was going to be on the cards, it seems like Fishlabs is going to get relegated to doing support work on other games. I was reading something about how they had a couple of projects canceled on them already. They keep trying to get new things off the ground and having that linked out of them. These guys are going to get turned into a support studio. And after how awesome I thought Chorus was, I really feel like they deserve better than that. Going on to their statement. Talented, dedicated, and highly experienced people will be leaving Fishlabs. We want them to find new teams and projects they can be passionate and proud of again. Our team has always been supportive of one another and will remain friends, supporters, and advocates of each other's work. You deserve every success in your future. Yeah, I'm telling you, Chorus, it's not a AAA game. There's a lot of jank to it. But for a arcadey space sim, which is a genre that doesn't get touched all that much and has been kind of languishing for many a year, I think it's one of the best ones out there, at least in the past 5 years or so. If you like that style of game, if you're fond of old things like Wing Commander, Freelancer, X-Wing, it's not going to be necessarily as in-depth as those, but if you remember playing Colony Wars specifically, I highly recommend taking a look at it. It's good. It's good. That brings us to how many people that Volition has, not Volition, a little slip of a tongue there, that Embracer has laid off total. We're looking at about 900 developers since their restructuring began after the Savvy Group's deal fell apart, which is about 5% of the total headcount. You had Volition get completely closed after the admittedly disastrous Saints Row. Crystal Dynamics had massive cuts. This is the house that Tomb Raider is under right now. 15 unannounced projects came across from Amplifier, Free Mode, Gearbox, Saber, PlayOn, THQ Nordic, and many others. Of their, I think it was like 65 unannounced games, 15 were just gone now. Expect way more than that getting canceled, by the way. and their crown jewels are up for sale. Gearbox, people, they're looking for people to buy Gearbox, not even all that long after they just bought them themselves. So there's no way they're not going to take a hit on that sale, assuming anyone even bothers to buy them, because as I said, it's tight right now. No one's going out of their way to acquire things unless you're a super big boy. And I don't think Sony cares to have Gearbox. Microsoft might be, but considering all they had to go through to get the Activision deal sealed, I don't think they're going to be buying anyone anytime soon. Embracer is out. I don't. How can I put Embracer is definitely sinking. Now, they can definitely right the ship as well. They have so much shit that they can cut, so much fat that they can trim, and it's going to lead to a lot of people losing their jobs. But this is what happens when you just start randomly buying up shit left and right with no actual plan. 65 plus games in development. That is obscene. There's no way they were going to have that kind of turnaround. Now, I can imagine in their minds, because they started doing this before lockdowns happened and everyone was forced shut in their home and delayed everything out 2 or 3 years. So their thought was, we can start cranking these games out 18 months at a time. They'll be B tier. People will expect that. They won't be expecting AAA stuff, and that's fair enough. I don't go and play an Embracer game expecting Naughty Dog levels of quality here. I expect a mid-tier game for 30 or 40 bucks. But when all that got delayed and it pushed everything back, suddenly you spent all of this money and have no income coming in because you haven't released shit. And what you are releasing, no one's buying. Because right now, this year specifically, you have all these bangers coming out. There ain't a dead time to release your stuff at the moment. You have to go up against juggernauts, and the mid-tier just ain't going to cut it. You either be small indie darlings like Dave the Diver, and no, we won't be getting to the Game Awards controversy about that, but that's one of them. These little $5, $10, $15, $20 experiences, or you drop $70 on the full game. As much as I love the idea of a middle market $30, $40 game, RoboCop Rogue City being an excellent example of that right now, you can't live on it. Because it's still kind of hit or miss when it comes to that stuff. And even your $30 or $40 games are going to require a lot to make. And at the rate that Embracer would have had to have been cranking them out with as many studios as they just took on recklessly, no way. They would have to release one of these like a month and have all of them be at least moderately successful to keep going. The writing on the wall for this studio has been on the wall for the studio for years at this point. And I think that this would have happened even if you didn't have the economic malaise that's currently crippling the globe at the moment. It's just a shame that Wingfur's not going to pay the price for his hubris. I'm not one to deny someone for negotiating an appropriate cost for becoming the CEO of a company or anything like that. I don't have the blind hatred of the C-suite like many of my contemporaries do. I think that you should be able to get paid as much as you can get away with. If you negotiate that price and the shareholders think you can be worth it, so be it. However, when negotiating those contracts, you would figure there'd be at least some degree of accountability attached along to it. And unless Wingfors owns 51% plus of the company that he's running, I don't think he does. To be fair, I did not look at it. He should rightfully be dragged before the board and shit-canned, dismissed without a second thought through the disastrous tenure he has led there. Anyways, rant over for the moment. Let me know what you guys think down below about the Embracer situation. If you have anything you want to add to it, or if I got something wrong, please let me know. Moving on to the next topic here, despite what we reported on last week when Bungie said, hey, the final shape's not delayed, well, lo and behold, the final shape is delayed. We knew this was going to happen, right? The last show I did before I went on my Thanksgiving break was talking about how the final shape still seemingly listed for its February release date. But we all kind of knew that was going to be bullshit, right? Everyone was already reporting that it was going to get delayed. It seemed like they would be announcing that a day or two after Bungie had its unceremonious layoffs of people all the way up to Oh my god, I can't remember his name. I think it's Salvatore. Uh, the other half of Marty O'Donnell, who made the Halo soundtracks and all the way back to Myth, I think. We knew this was happening, and yet they also knew that. Let's be 100% real. They also knew it was happening. I personally believe that they were lying to try to keep the PR damage to a minimum and space it out a little bit, hoping that people would forget about the layoffs. That's what I think. I'm not going to make any definitive claim to that because it does fall into some legal market territory if I start outright saying that they lied, but come on. Come on. We all knew this was going to happen. Anyways, to the actual blog post itself. Hey everyone, we'll keep it short and simple. The final shape needs more time to become exactly what it wants to be, so we're moving its release date to June 4th, 2024. Scuttlebutt has been that the final shape was good, but not great. And considering this is the climax of their long-touted Light and Darkness saga, the big final climatic battle of Destiny 2, the Traveler versus the Darkness guy whose name I can't remember right now because who the fuck cares? Destiny 2's plot has dumped a shark. What is his name? Not the Stranger. The Stranger's someone else. The Witness. The Witness. And no one seems to care. And that's damning for a company like Bungie, who really only has one game right now. They're desperately trying to stay afloat and hoping Marathon comes out to save their ass. But it's going to be a race to see if that game comes out. Anyways, comes out in time to save them before they have to start even doing more cuts. Moving back to their press release. We're taking the time we need to deliver an even bigger and bolder vision, one that we hope will be remembered and treasured for years to come. Naturally, this change brings up questions about our upcoming release calendar. Season of the Wish begins tomorrow and will extend until the launch of the final shape in June. That's right, another stupidly long season, which is always rough because the seasons don't have content for that long, so they're going to be dragging it out, and the pacing's going to be all kinds of fucked up, even more than normally would find in a Destiny season. While the majority of the content narrative for Season of the Wish will run from late November to February as originally planned, the team is adding new content available for all players to jump into until the launch of the final shape. They say they're adding new content available to all players. They say that the Season of the Wish will land until February, but we've seen this before. What happens is that they just keep those things up and then add something like the anniversary thing that they put in there to kind of tide people over until the next season. It's not good, and when the game is already kind of floundering, you're going to be very hard pressed to keep people on to the last to last beyond the original content pass there. I'm starting to flounder because I'm losing track, but you guys know what I'm saying. And the content that they're developing to be interim between the end of the Season of the Wish and the final shape, you know it's not going to be quality because they're having to rush to make it. This was not originally the plan. So they are going to be cranking out some mediocrity. We all know this is going to be what happens. You might even get some things that were supposed to be in the final shape, maybe pushed out a little bit early when it comes to things like PvP maps or something like that. Who knows? But I get the feeling that there is a rejiggering of content that was going to make it into the final shape about them going, okay, what can we give them now to tide them over? Because Bungie, they're also hemorrhaging money. The player base of Destiny is leaving that game, and morale for its install base is at an all-time low. Lightfall was not very well received. The layoffs that happened a couple months ago, or even a month ago, I think at this point, have really tarnished their image. And now this. Things ain't good there. Going back to the article. In February, this will include new weekly progression-based quests called Wishes, and the launch of the Moments of Triumph with unique rewards. Next, we're moving the Guardian games up to March with a refreshed focus on class v class competition. Then begin in April, we're delivering a 2-month content update available to everyone called Destiny 2 Into the Light, which will prepare players for their Guardian's journey into the Traveler. All of this in addition to the ongoing efforts from our PvP strike team, including 3 new PvP maps dropping in May. Once again, how much you want to bet those PvP maps were scheduled to come out with final shape? of older areas that might have already been nothing new in a new area, but maybe older areas like Venus that getting repurposed and redesigned, maybe a little bit in with the current game content. I get the feeling we're going to be seeing a lot of recycling of content here, or at the very least, content planned for the final shape getting repurposed. And as I've already made mention of, these dragged out, overly long seasons really, really damage the game experience. This is what happens when you tie yourself to games as a service. You must keep the content stream steady, consistent, and ongoing. You can't stop, which is why games as a service is ultimately a trap, because we talk about the treadmill, right, as players. New content comes out, you have to grind to get the new gear to fight the new things. New content drops, you need new gear, and you have to run up that treadmill. You have to climb that treadmill constantly, never get off. It's a double-edged sword. As a developer, you now are also having to constantly create new content to keep people playing, to get the stuff to beat the new content, then to make new content to keep them playing. It's a horrendous cycle, and they will all eventually implode in on themselves. And I think we're starting to see some studios and publishers realizing that. You had Sony recently announced they're easing off their games as a service plans. You have WB coming out and saying games like Wonder Woman are not games as a service. It's going to be a single player game. Have fun. I think they're starting to see the early reception to Suicide Squad and probably sweating bullets at this point. And they're just overly costly. Everyone builds, well, let me rephrase. These publishers consistently try to chase Grand Theft Auto Online and Fortnite and Roblox, etc., for something that they can make once and then milk for 10 years. But the reality of the situation is those games are so rare and so costly to make that if it doesn't, you have to put almost your entire company's resources into maintaining them, which is the definition of putting all of your eggs in one basket. If something happens to that game, player count suddenly falls off. I'm looking at you, Destiny. One of the big leads of your team decides to bounce out. A competitor takes over. You're fucked, and it's not just the game that's going bye-bye. It's it's your company that's in peril. Games as a service has the potential of making a shit ton of money, but it is extremely high risk for the reward. And I think more and more people are waking up to it on the developer/publisher side, specifically the publisher side. I think you're starting to see them kind of going, we can't take these risks because we're oversaturated. At least that is what I hope. There's a little bit of wishful thinking in there, I'll fully admit. Hopefully, though, this is going to be the beginning of the end of the games as a service. Not that I want to see Destiny 2 go out with a whimper. Not that I want to see Bungie go through any more shit than it already has. But a reckoning is coming for this stuff. And I do think that we might be on the verge of another video game crash like we saw in the 80s when companies were just exploding because they overproduced, overextended, spent too much in development, tried to create a bunch of shovelware to make up the gaps, and people just went, nah, I'm good. And I think you're starting to see it. But let me know what you think down below. Moving on, we're going back to VGC for this one. The Game Awards security will be tightened to prevent another stage invasion, Geoff Keighley says. Great. This should have been handled with the first time around, but it happened twice under your watch, Keighley. The first time, okay, I get it. The second time, though, which you're seeing here with this photo, unfucking acceptable. Going to the article, and I'll explain what these are in a second. Both the Game Awards in 2022 and this year's Gamecom's Opening Night Live show were disrupted by unauthorized people coming onto the stage and speaking into the microphone. These instances have raised concern for the safety of Keighley and other guests who take the stage to give and receive awards and discuss upcoming games. In a recent Q&A stream on Twitch, Keighley was asked if he'd be taking more security measures for this year's Game Awards to prevent a third stage invasion from happening. Keighley said he was, but didn't want to go into specifics so that it would be invaders wouldn't know what the security plans are in advance. Makes sense. Totally makes sense. You don't want to talk about what you're doing because if people go, okay, well, they're doing that, that, and that, I'll do something else. I get it. This discussion should have happened after the Game Award. The fact that these people are allowed to run up on stage, let alone be there for as long as they were. At the Game Awards, specifically when a bunch of people from Elden Ring got up. Let me see if I can read the article. Here we go. Back to the article. At the Game Awards last year, Elden Ring director Hidetaka Miyazaki's Game of the Year acceptance speech was followed by a bizarre moment when a member of the audience appeared to join the From Software team on stage before grabbing the mic and making references to his Orthodox rabbi Bill Clinton. And he was up there for a very long time. This kid just walked up with the group of people walking up there. No one stopped him. No one said anything. And he just kind of stood with this group for a good couple of minutes. And as they're all saying thank you, he kind of grabs the mic and tries to make some weird joke that I didn't get what was going on. But I'm also old, so maybe I ain't with it anymore. The fact that he didn't immediately get yanked off the stage is shocking to me, and that he was able to stand there for so long. And it encouraged a second incident that happened during Gamescom's opening night live, when he was interrupted by early during the stage open audience member who appeared to repeat the Bill Clinton wants GTA 6 over and over again. Keighley, to his credit, kept his calm, but you can see the look on his face of like, this motherfucker not again. The reason why this is a concern is because there's some shit going on in the world right now when it comes to global politics. There's a bunch of hot conflicts right now where thousands of people are dying. Accusations of genocide on both sides of the aisle are flying across the area. And people love making grandiose gestures. All it takes is for one asshole to rush the stage with a knife, injure a person, and start spouting off whatever political ideology that they are backing at the time to try to make some point. This can't be allowed to happen a third time. It can't. Because they've already shown themselves to be an exceptionally soft target, and with a viewership in the millions at both of these events, it would be a perfect target for some asshole, insane person to try to make some kind of statement. At this point, it does fall on Keighley to secure that stage. I don't want anything bad to happen. I'm not even hoping it happens for like coverage purposes. I want it to be a very uneventful show. But given the track record, I would not be surprised if someone tried to do some protester activist nonsense. Even something as benign as the idiot Extinction Rebellion people running up and splashing with orange paint or something like that. It all needs to be stopped before it even goes that far. So I'm hoping that they finally have adequate security measures in place and that they're paying the fuck attention. Because everyone wants their 15 minutes of fame. And right now, there are people who consider themselves on a holy mission to do whatever they can to bring attention to whatever their little pet cause may be. So Keighley, please, for the love of Christ, have your shit locked down. Moving on to a couple more stories before we wrap things up here. We have this from CD Projekt Red Investor Relations. It seems that Cyberpunk 2077's Phantom Liberty expansion has been selling bigly since it came out, with 4.3 million copies of it sold. That is more than most games sell, period. And this is an expansion. By the way, we can extrapolate a little bit from here. If they have a 20% attachment ratio, meaning that of everyone that bought Cyberpunk 2077, 1/5 of them bought Phantom Liberty, we can come to the conclusion that Cyberpunk itself has sold over 20 million copies. A bona fide success, no matter how you dice it. Yes, it had an extremely troubled launch. I, for one, refused to play it for that first year and a half until CD Projekt Red pulled its head out of its ass and actually fixed the game. I am slowly making my way through it now again, however, and it's shockingly good now in the state. I did put about 30 hours into the 1.0 version of it, and it was just dreary bug-filled mess even on PC. But they finally got some stuff right in the game. Is it everything that was promised? No, it can't be with a massive rewrite all the way down. You're talking about a separate game at that point. But it is good. Dare I even say great at this point. I'd recommend you take a look at it. Plus, they do have the Ultimate Edition coming out in a week, so expect this number to climb. The Ultimate Edition, of course, being the game and the DLC all in one package. So I'd expect this number to climb. I wouldn't be surprised if, when all is said and done, Cyberpunk ends up selling 25 million. Huge, huge number. All right, let's move on to this sad story. It's not even sad, it's just kind of comical at this point. Exclusive from Insider Gaming, Skull and Bones release date February 2024. Okay. I'll believe it when I see it. Following 6 delays, Insider Gaming has learned that Skull and Bones has finally gotten a release date of February 16th, 2024. Skull and Bones, for those who don't know, is supposed to be another games as a service in the style of Assassin's Creed Black Flag. You know, that game that came out like more than a decade ago, I think. And they keep trying to, Ubisoft keeps trying to chase the pirate love from that game without just making another Black Flag. So they're creating this pirate combat simulator. And yeah, it's been delayed 6 times, constantly getting revised, constantly getting pushed back, seemingly for just any number of reasons. Did I mention that Ubisoft is another studio that seems to be on fire lately? And I don't mean the positive fire. I mean like the trash fire dog sitting with the coffee cup, this is fine kind of fire. They have major issues going on. Going back to the article. The information follows an official announcement from Ubisoft in October that the game has a release window set for Q4 fiscal year 23-24. Last week, Daryl Long, who will be moving to Toronto to become the managing director, confirmed the game will ship before the end of the fiscal year. Details on the game's new release date were announced but are unclear, but sources suggest due to the nature of the information obtained that it's likely to be in the next couple weeks, possibly at the Game Awards. Skull and Bones was originally planned for 2018 release, 7 years ago at this point? Hold on. 5 years ago at this point. Before being delayed no less than 6 times. At one point, the game was even developed with a new vision in mind from the studio at Ubisoft Singapore. This, Beyond Good and Evil 2, Prince of Persia. What the hell is going on at Ubisoft? They fought that hostile takeover from Vivendi, which is probably the smartest, that's probably a blessing for Vivendi, considering how chaotic Ubisoft has been over the past half decade. I don't understand what is going on. And I don't see it getting any better for them anytime soon. I think they're going to quietly just shelve Beyond Good and Evil 2 and never talk about it again. I think they're going to shit out Skull and Bones, expecting it to fail, so don't expect much support for it when it drops. If it surprisingly has some success out the gate, they might start kind of cranking out some content for it. But I expect that game to be woefully unsupported after it's like a couple months out. I think it's going to go bye-bye real quick. Division Heartland or Homeland or whatever the hell that one. I think it's Heartland. No one's seen hide or hair of that in quite a while. You have the next Far Cry that seems to be ambiguous. You do have Assassin's Creed with Mirage that recently came out to reviews. And they're also working on the Feudal Japan one that might be cool, but it's hard to say because Assassin's Creed constantly keeps trying to reinvent itself. It's a franchise that they just won't let die. It needs to go, it needs to resolve and go away. Maybe come back in a new form many years from now. But Ubisoft just has issues. I don't know what more to say. Let's jump to some more layoffs, unfortunately. We're going to go to Reuters for one of these last 2 stories here. Unity Software to cut 3.8% of staff in a company reset. Oh, Unity. Once again, John Riccatello fucking things up and moving on to the next corpse he's going to drain dry. He really is that Grim Reaper meme. when you see like the Grim Reaper walking through the hallway and all the open doors and blood pouring out everywhere. That's John Riccitiello. Moving on to the article. Video game software provider Unity Software will eliminate 265 jobs, or 3.8% of its global workforce, and end an agreement with digital effects company founded by Lord of the Rings director as part of a reset the company said on Tuesday. In September, the company tried to impose a new runtime fee pricing policy, which charged new fees to game developers if a certain revenue and install threshold were met. That was a deck of cards on October. Following a developer revolt and steep drop-off in share price, the company revamped the new fees. In October, Unity CEO John Riccitiello retired, and the company appointed former IBM president Jim Whitehurst as interim CEO and president, and Sequoia Capital partner Rolef Botha as board chairman. The question is, was he retired, or was he told, retire or we fucking fire you? Even if they fire him, he still probably would get a lot of money on the way out, but at least this way he gets to save some face and join the board of directors of another company, where I'm sure Riccitiello's history of making horrendous decisions will pursue him to that one wherever he goes up. Beware those who think of actually bringing him on. Just because he's worked for a bunch of companies and has an impressive resume doesn't mean he's actually fucking good at his job. He has failure after failure behind him. Be wary of this man. Tuesday's announcement includes termination of professional services piece of agreement by Unity struck with movie director Peter Jackson's visual effects company Weta FX in 2021 after Unity purchased the technology and engineering division of Weta FX. As a result, 265 employees whose jobs are related to the agreement are also laid off the company. In addition, Unity will shut down 14 offices in locations such as Berlin, Singapore, pending employee consultation in some countries. Once again, going back to the UK and how they have a law that says you have to consult for 30 days. Same idea with many countries in Europe. And significantly reduce its office footprint in the remaining offices, including in San Francisco and Bellevue, Washington. So, spinning off the effects team that they bought in 2021. So they've only had it for a couple of years. Firing people from that. Closing down many in office, which means you're firing people because of that. Reducing your overall footprint, so you're getting rid of your offices across the globe, meaning everyone else now has to pick up the slack. Unity fucked itself by trying to squeeze an extra buck or two from the developers. They tried to get an extra few pennies on the fucking dollar. They figured that they could squeeze their customers, because people buy Unity. It's an engine people buy. Just a little bit more. They weren't happy enough with what they had. And they fucked their brand so much that they have to reduce their workforce by almost 4%. I know that 4% doesn't sound like much. But that's a huge deal, because they're not just reducing their workforce by 4%. They're shutting down offices. The CEO was, well, he's retiring. Yet another fucking travesty caused by John Riccitiello. Like I said, just beware of that man. Don't hire him in even an advisory position. Although, I wouldn't be surprised if he winds up working for Tencent in way, shape, or form. Because for as much as we talk shit about him, he is connected. You have to be connected to keep getting those jobs. And those connections in themselves are worth a lot of money. So a fond fuck you to John Riccitiello as he moves on to what I assume are going to be greener pastures despite his retirement. Let's be honest, he ain't going to stay retired for so long. He is going to move on to another company, make disastrous choices, and leave even more employees without jobs. And fuck that. Final story of the day, we go to GameIndustry.biz. Sorry, I had to look up the website for that one. ReedPop is investigating potential sell of its gamer network business. Essentially, the gamer network businesses are going to be your online sites like GamesIndustry.biz, where I'm reading this from, Eurogamer, Rock Paper Shotgun, VG 24/7, and Dicebreaker. I also use Eurogamer and VG247 as good sources for the stream, so this one has a little bit worried because they're actually sites that I visit. Going on. Not included a sale of UK-based events EGX or MCM, or of a digital brand Popverse. ReedPop, by the way, they're the people that also own some of the conventions that are like PAX, for example. So they are more than just online sites. They own a bunch of gaming-related properties. The company said in a statement, ReedPop, part of RX, has reviewed its UK business decisions and decided to investigate potential sale of its gamer network and associated editorial digital properties. We believe that new ownership offers the best conditions for growth of the business. I have to wonder. So, I know that I have been down on the idea of people being able to sell these things to other companies, specifically when it comes to games journalism outlets. The long and the short is, games media has been dying for like a decade at this point. It's nowhere near as profitable as it used to be. You have the rise of AI, so when your site curates nothing but listicles, top tens, outrage bait, you can easily create that shit with AI too. So the idea of buying these sites is getting less and less appealing, right or wrongly. Like I said, I like VG247, I like Eurogamer, I like GamesInformer.biz. I think they're actually solid sites. But the entire medium has been tainted with these. So typically, I would say, would expect those sites to close down or have massive. However, and this is not to say those still aren't coming. However, the Gamers Group had its escapist brand completely implode in on itself a couple of weeks ago, with a good chunk of them just saying, fuck you, I quit, and bouncing out. I can see a company like Gamers going, oh shit, we need asses to fill seats. Let's buy these, try to get the talent from these, and then put them in different positions. We'll merge sites, we'll close a couple of them down, we'll take our dying brands and put them into things like Eurogamer or VG247, or incorporate Rock Paper Shotgun into the Escapist as well. I can see them potentially doing something like that. Beyond that, I don't see any hope of ReedPop successfully spinning these off to anyone out there. And if they do, they'll be buying them for the names, not for the people in the. So I'd be very, very nervous if I worked for any one of those outlets. Because, well, as it feels like I keep saying with every show, the economy sucks. And it ain't getting any better anytime. And I hope you all are prepared, regardless of what industry you work in, for the axe to eventually come your way. Because it's going to get bad before, it's going to get worse before it's better. Anyways, on that downer of a note, that has been GamePoints episode 376. Thank you all for showing up. I do stream this show live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. here at twitch.tv/GamePoints. If you can't watch us live, however, you can watch us over at a myriad of video hosting platforms, Rumble, YouTube, BitChute, etc. You can follow me on X at CapitalistPig21. And I also stream throughout the week here at twitch.tv/GamePoints, be it strategy games, horror games, indie games, whatever comes across my way. Just whatever interests me at the time. If you like what you saw here, you want to support the stream, you know what to do. Likes, bits, follows, subs, shares, all that good stuff. You can join our Discord group, link provided down there below if you want to be part of the greater GamePoints community. And that's also where you're going to find the links to all the stories we talked about today. Please go give them a look yourselves if you're interested in learning more about the topics we talked about today. Thank you all for showing up, and until next week, I'm out of here.